Here's a statement that might shock you. Montana's governor believes it's time to strip federal protection from one of America's most feared and revered predators, the grizzly bear. Governor Gianforte made waves recently when he traveled to the small town of Choteau, Montana, alongside Montana Fish Wildlife Parks Director Christy Clark, to make a bold declaration to local residents. Their message: the federal government has overstayed its welcome when it comes to managing grizzly bears, and it's time for Montana to take the reins. The remarkable comeback of grizzly bears in the Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem represents one of wildlife conservation's greatest triumphs, built on the backs of Montana residents who've made countless sacrifices over the past several decades. Governor Gianforte explained to the gathered crowd, now that these magnificent creatures have not only bounced back, but are venturing into territories they haven't occupied for more than 100 years, the moment has arrived for our state to assume control over managing this legendary American symbol. But here's where it gets controversial. Not everyone agrees that removing federal protections is the right move. Let's rewind to 1975, when grizzly bears first received protection under the Endangered Species Act. Back then, experts estimated that fewer than 1,000 of these massive predators roamed the entire lower 48 states, a number so alarmingly low that extinction seemed like a real possibility. Fast forward to today, and the Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem alone supports an estimated 1,300 grizzly bears. That's a remarkable conservation success story by any measure. However, and this is the part most people miss, this population boom has created an entirely new set of challenges that nobody anticipated when the recovery efforts began. As grizzly numbers have steadily climbed in the NCDE region, so too have the number of tense encounters between these powerful predators and the humans who live, work, and play in their expanding territory. Farmers are losing livestock, ranchers are changing their daily routines, outdoor enthusiasts are altering their hiking plans, and residents are looking over their shoulders in areas where grizzlies were virtually extinct just decades ago. When you have a larger grizzly population, the mathematical reality is that you're going to see more conflicts. It's simple probability, the governor emphasized. Montana desperately needs expanded management tools to handle this species effectively. Without these tools, our local communities, families, agricultural producers, and outdoor recreation enthusiasts will continue shouldering the burden of restrictive federal regulations while living with the constant anxiety of potential dangerous encounters. Director Clark echoed these sentiments with even more conviction. Montana has developed a comprehensive statewide management strategy, and our wildlife professionals have accumulated decades of hands-on, real-world experience with these animals. We're not asking for something we're unprepared to handle. We're ready to assume full responsibility for grizzly bear management. The time has come to remove them from the threatened species list. To truly understand the situation on the ground, the governor and director took an aerial survey of the Choteau area before meeting with residents. Flying low over the rugged Rocky Mountain front in an FWP helicopter, they witnessed firsthand just how comfortable grizzlies have become in areas frequented by humans and livestock. The group spotted a mother bear with her cubs feeding in a stream, mere yards away from grazing cattle. But the most compelling testimony came from local residents like John Long, whose recent grizzly encounter reads like something from a wilderness survival handbook. While foraging for mushrooms on his own property, just 2 miles from the heart of Choteau, Long found himself face to face with a protective mother grizzly. She positioned herself where she had a clear view of us, reared up on her back legs to get a better look, then dropped back down and checked on her cub, Long recounted to the audience. I figured that would be the end of it, that she'd take her cub and disappear into the brush. Instead, she did the exact opposite. What happened next illustrates exactly why residents are demanding change. She began moving toward us at a deliberate pace. We're talking about a distance of roughly 70 yards when she started, but she closed that gap to about 30 yards, flattened her ears against her head, which any outdoorsman knows is a warning sign, and charged at us as fast as her legs could carry her. Stories like John's weren't isolated incidents at this community gathering. Nearly 50 concerned residents showed up at the city park to share their own harrowing tales of close calls with problem bears practically in their backyards, while listening to updates from Governor Gianforte, Director Clark, and federal wildlife officials. The federal perspective was represented by Josh W.D. Coursey from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who recently accepted a position as senior advisor to U.S. FWS Director Brian Nesvik. Coursey, a Wyoming native who understands Western wildlife management challenges, made a surprising admission that might signal changing attitudes at the federal level. I was officially sworn into this position on May 1st, and I want everyone here to understand something clearly. Addressing this exact issue has become our organization's top priority. In fact, it's the primary reason I accepted this job, Coursey told the crowd. The political backdrop to this debate traces back to December 2021, when Governor Gianforte formally submitted a petition to federal authorities requesting the removal of grizzly bears in the NCDE from the threatened species list. This wasn't a hasty decision. The petition methodically demonstrated that NCDE grizzly bears constitute a genetically distinct population, have dramatically exceeded all established recovery targets, and that Montana Fish Wildlife Parks possesses both the organizational framework and expertise necessary to successfully manage this iconic native species independently. What many people don't realize is that Montana already handles much of the day-to-day grizzly management work, even though the bears remain under federal jurisdiction. FWP employs cutting-edge scientific monitoring techniques and maintains a specialized team of bear management experts who regularly collaborate with private landowners and educate the public about coexisting safely in bear habitat. And this is the part most people miss. If Montana is already doing the heavy lifting when it comes to grizzly management, why shouldn't they have the authority to make management decisions that reflect local conditions and priorities? But here's the million-dollar question that's dividing communities across the American West. Have grizzly bears truly recovered to the point where they no longer need federal protection? Or are we rushing toward a decision that could jeopardize decades of conservation progress? Some argue that delisting represents the natural evolution of successful wildlife management, a graduation, if you will, from intensive care to routine stewardship. Others worry that removing federal oversight could lead to overly aggressive management practices that might reverse the remarkable recovery we've witnessed. What do you think? Has Montana earned the right to manage its own grizzly bears, or should federal protections remain in place until we're absolutely certain these magnificent predators won't face population declines again? Should local communities have more say in wildlife management decisions that directly impact their daily lives, or do some species require national-level protection regardless of local concerns? Share your thoughts, whether you're a rancher dealing with livestock losses, a hiker concerned about trail safety, a conservationist worried about species protection, or simply someone who believes they have a stake in how America manages its most iconic wildlife. This debate affects us all, and every perspective deserves to be heard.